Hey, what is up everyone? I'm Piglet here once again, and I'm back for some more of yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Yoshi's Crafted World for the Nintendo Switch. Again, I won't stress that enough again about the fact that I almost say Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, but ultimately we're still playing Yoshi's Crafted World, but I digress. So last time we have managed to able to fully 100% for everything in Pastry Pathway while grabbing the last few souvenirs, and also we did manage to tackle through the first level in Sky High Heights, which appears to be altitude adjustment. So today we're about to be continuing things on in Sky High Heights, and we're about to be moving on to the next level in this particular world, and that appears to be Poochie's Magma Run, which, just like Pastry Pathway, that once again we might actually bump into Poochie every once in a while. And as to be expected on this particular world's case, it's basically a lava kind of well, the environment, as you can see, for that particular level right there. So either way, yeah, let's get this thing to it, and hopefully we'll able to once again gather some more collectibles and stuff like that. So there's not much else to say. So either way, a few things I want to explain about this actually is that today's day is the forms of the 5th of March, according to the forms of that specific date during the uploading schedules and during today. Recently, that the UK version of the Nintendo DSi XL has become 10 years old now in the forms of the UK version, which still I managed to got it with me still, despite it was actually pretty much used. But either way though, I managed to got it in a nice little condition. Like, the top screen is actually pure clean, and also during the bottom screen, despite how it's like filled with scratches and everything, even though I've almost had that particular DSi XL for about almost a year now, despite having played it that much, because relatively speaking, I managed to fully complete it most of my DS games, like Mario Kart, New Super Mario Bros., and also Mario Party DS, and even especially noticeable with any other Mario games for that matter. Well, some exceptions I need to able to get back into, like Wario Master of Disguise, and also same applies to the WarioWare games. Well, I've already 100% for everything in WarioWare Touched, so now I'm on to DIY, which it might take a while to able to actually do all that kinds of stuff, but unfortunately though, I don't think I can able to fully 100% for everything on that game because Nintendo Wi-Fi connection has been no longer functional for this point. So even then I was just like, beggar cells can be choosers I suppose, but either way, that's how it goes basically, so... But yeah, I digress. And that could be also same applies for, well, I would say until when it gets to the point that, well, I suppose there's actually a few things that, I would say, in terms of the actual standpoint, most notably with, I've not actually mentioned about this, and also same applies that, Daffy has not even mentioned about that during time, that, recently, that, the Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing for all few of those platforms, which there are obviously for the Nintendo Wii, Nintendo DS, Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3, the actual main title, Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, has been out for also for 10 years, which even then I can't even believe. Time itself just managed to go and flying by all of a sudden, and as a result of that kinds of stuff though, it just makes everything else, time-wise, goes a little bit too fast for at one point, especially whenever I was like, playing certain games or what have you, such as, of course, I'm still tackling through this game in particular, and also same applies that, you know how Sonic, he's managed to recently continue things on with the Super Mario Sunshine game, so either way, I just want to let you guys know about that. So, I suppose another thing I wanted to discuss upon is the fact that, well, unfortunately, for those of you probably wondering, where in the hell is the new Nintendo Direct, the general one I should say, unfortunately, seemingly to tell you for this point, guys, there is still no sign of it, unless that, some people did manage to point things out, it's been 6 whole months, a half a year since the last general Nintendo Direct, and then I think most people seem to get pretty much mad at this point right about now. Most notably because they just want to get the actual General Direct up before, you know, before the actual E3 will about to be announced eventually. So even then though, it might not be a very good sign for most of our fans out there, myself included, mind you, because I'm really hoping they're able to bring us something new to the table, but unfortunately though, it just gets a bit frustrating. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab the next smiley flower, so hopefully we're able to eat up some more berries and make sure we don't get hit by that particular lava bulker thing right here, ever since on, well, in the Pirate Pier. Oh jeez, that was close. That was really close right there, especially for that dodge right there. But anyways, let's go ahead and eat the actual eggs up, and I don't think, nah, it may look like it's not going to make me trying to go, and yeah, I don't think I can able to do that. So, it might be seems pretty useless though, with this particular question mark cloud, because as far as I can gather, it might actually talk about, well, it only gives us like a coin or something. So anyways, let's see what's in here. Just hearts. I would have hoping I can able to actually just find the final smiley flower on this level, but unfortunately, because I have no idea what I'm gonna do for this for the sake of time, but unfortunately for the sake of clarity, we might have to leave it for a while. Oh, someone's playing Super Smash Bros. Ultimate recently, which I think is to be expected because of how the fact that we will eventually get some more info on, you know, DLC Fighters Pass Volume 2. Speaking of the forms of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, actually, about the fact that, unfortunately, so far, that Sakurai has managed to able to pass out recently, probably due to the lack of hydration, according to the forms of some other news reports out there, which I'm really hoping that he will still live, because that way he would able to actually get enough time for able to plan out for some more DLC fighters for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. So even then though, because, well, as soon as when a new DLC comes around, then I'm definitely going to be playing that game for forever, like, even until almost instant, because, well, it is definitely one of my favorite Nintendo Switch games I've ever played, which I'm sure most people seem to agree with that. So, anyways, let's move on to the next level, as you can see right there, the final level in Sky High Heights, and that is Windward Way, which I do apologize for that awkward pausing during the phone's that specific spelling, but that's how it goes basically. And I think for these particular white ball stuff, these appears to be by the forms of a ping pong, if I recall for that, because from the looks of the texture and everything, but even then I just want to classify that for the actual materials and stuff. So in this level, as you can see right there, much like the forms of the previous Yoshi games, is that once again you get out to get a lot of emphasis on these goony birds in order to actually just for the sake of like either just eat them, or you can just simply just make them, well, if you manage to get onto the actual goony birds, then you would able to actually act out as a platforms basically, which you definitely want to do that because some parts of this level though does retains the actual giant bottomless pit below, so even then though you might able to actually best to avoid all that kinds of stuff. So yeah, I just want to classify that. So yeah, because unfortunately for the sake of clarity for this point guys, there is not much else we can able to talk about when it comes to news, updates or anything like that yet again. Oh Jesus Louise, that was pretty close. Especially noticeable, I almost gonna fell off right there and almost gonna be missing out on that specific red coin right there, because if I accidentally drop the red coin from, you know, over a bottomless pit or something, then otherwise I might able to actually come back for it and just trying to grab it just for the sake of you guys want to see of the actual collectibles being collected. So, but however though, despite with the actual bare bones lack of directs yet again, thankfully though, we have some news to discuss. Specifically, there was actually new DLC that's just recently released yesterday for Luigi's Mansion 3 for the Nintendo Switch. And the reason why I point that out is because originally, that that particular first part of DLC, well, the DLC pack part 1, when it comes to the multiplayer DLC thing for Luigi's Mansion 3, originally part 1 was supposed to be released until at some point in April, but it turns out it is actually pushed forward a little bit during the forms of the 4th of March, which it did happen recently yesterday, which I don't think that Sonic actually has mentioned about that during the forms of during in this Super Mario Sunshine Let's Play. So yeah, something's worth mentioning for this point, so those of you who really don't want to miss out on that specific fun parts. And as far as I've noticed, is the fact that I think we've already mentioned about the forms of well, of course, the costumes you're going to be getting for DLC Multiplayer Pack Part 1, that you get yourselves 3 costumes for Luigi, such as, of course, Mummy Luigi, and also same applies to Groovy Luigi. I think that's what the actual costume is now known as, and also the Green Knight, which is pretty cool though, especially that what makes those costumes unique about that is the fact that you can able to see the different themes of different rooms in between the forms of, I would say in Scarescraper most likely, because you can only utilize those costumes during Scarescraper mode according to the forms of the gameplay footage of it so far. I really love to able to actually just to purchase that particular DLC as far as this point. Unfortunately though, I have to wait for a while because at the moment right now, that I don't have that much, well I still managed to get my cash with me, so that way I can able to actually spend on Luigi's Mansion 3 DLC for that department. But unfortunately though, I can't get it like a few % off because, well, pretty much lacking with those gold points because, well, of course, so far, that the ones I did manage to able to actually got the gold points after all for all these, oh no, not these popping balloons thing again. And I would guarantee I'm might as well able to mess up instantly because the lack of aiming shot skills and stuff, so yeah, that's gonna be pretty annoying. Especially that ever since in the garden level that I always have a hard time with most of the time. But now in here we meet again with all these little lack of aiming shots, so unfortunately though I didn't get a chance to get on that, so. But I digress. I'm really hoping that how much the actual DLC thing was cost again, because I've seriously managed to able to cannot believe by saying that I've actually lost track of myself of what the actual UK's price was all about for the Luigi's Mansion 3 multiplayer DLC Part 1. And I'm sure that Silver the Hedgehog were able to mention about that, more details onto that, assuming if you're able to actually fully conclude Rayman Raving Rabbit's Let's Play during the forms of this weekend, so hopefully, relatively speaking, he would able to mention about that specific matter, so. But I digress. So even then, in addition to having 3 pieces of DLC costumes for Luigi's Mansion 3, we also get ourselves the new minigames, which there are 3 of them so far. So naturally speaking, they have got Tricky Ghost Hunt, which is basically is more likely the harder version of the normal regular Ghost Hunt. Like specifically, the only major challenge for this part is the fact that you have to go through a lot of dangerous hazards this time around, which, sure enough though, it makes it up for the challenge for most people, so even then I'm really looking forward to see how that turns out, but unfortunately though, I have to let my friends come over to able to play multiplayer with me sometimes, but even then though, not now though, so. And another minigame they actually did brought out is Dodge Brawl, which speak for itself, basically it's like dodgeball, but with just dodge fruit in general or something like that. It always kind of reminds me of that minigame from the likes of Rio, the video game, where you're trying to deal with like a dodge bomb, but except in the forms of Luigi's Mansion 3, that you have to deal with the forms of the Poltergust G00, which even then though, because I just want to point that out, because that was the actual main emphasis on that, so, I guess just as far as I might as well know, before you get onto the forms of the souvenir hunting and the rest of the actual Poochie Pups hide-and-seek kind of scenario, as you can tell, I've managed to come across into myself buy one for free for that specific little capsule thing, and we only got one costume for that particular run, and that is of course, well assuming if that's gonna pop up, not Dip, which I don't know what that pronunciation of that specific name, but let's not worry about this right now, because we can able to easily spend, you know, just a whole amount of coins, so that way we can able to get the rest of the actual remaining costumes on that specific capsule. So let's see what we got here. So we got Flightless Goonie Hut, and also Soda Cap, and also we got the Lava Bath, and also that thing, whatever you want to call it, again I do apologize for that, UFO, and also the Flightless Goonie, and also we got the Apple Juice Box, and the Golden UFO, and finally of course it's just a plane itself. So either way, we'll just simply leave it from here, and I think we're pretty much almost at the halfway point of getting these costumes in this game. So hopefully, by the time whenever we get onto the future worlds throughout, then we can able to actually grab the rest of the actual costumes all by itself. So even then though, now we can able to access to the other 3 worlds as you can see right there. But unfortunately though, we have to stuck with 1 world in between. So this might take a while to able to actually just deal with the forms of, you know, trying to find the next dream gem. So it might take a really long time though. But you know. Okay, the reason why I'm coming back into this level once again, because you know how I said this before, about the fact that we're pretty much running out of eggs just for the sake of this particular final smiley flower, and also the health challenge that we did accidentally failed. Turns out I'm gonna have to do that for the sake of clarity before we move on to the forms of the rest of the souvenir huntings on this world, and that could be also the same applies for finding those Poochie Pups basically. So either way, hopefully that makes it a little bit of a guarantee when it comes to this particular world as far as it is. So even then, and by the time until whenever we get to next Tuesday and Thursday, then we can expect it able to actually just to conclude this world, specifically next Tuesday, and then after we're done with all that specific stuff, then we can move on to the next new world. So even then, I don't know what order I'm gonna go for, but even then, you might as well find it out in some form or another until likely next Tuesday or something. As far as next weekend, as far as I'm concerned, after when Rayman Raving Rabbit's Let's Play will be fully concluded, I don't know exactly what's going to be up next though. It could be either returning back into Kirby's Return to Dreamland or something, or I don't know, probably because of how the fact that it's a little bit too early to discuss at this point, plus because Tiana was busy going out and work and all that stuff, so hopefully she will be back onto Kirby's Return to Dreamland before we move on to the continuous uploading schedules of, not only for the sake of I'm still doing of, oh jeez, that was pretty messed up. Hold on, let's try this again. Oh my god, I have no idea what I'm doing right here. I absolutely have no idea why I just managed to slip that up. But anyway, let's try this again, and hopefully with a much more successful, attempts and all that stuff. I swear to god, every time when I was get onto the actual ping pong balls, as you can see according to the actual materials of the actual platforms, sometimes I always attempt to slip it up because most of the time it's all likely spherical and stuff like that. Although, to make things a little bit faster for you, if you don't feel like trying to wait, you can just simply just continuously hover for about a few seconds notice, just like the forms of Yoshi's Woolly World, where you can simply just do that, except in this game in particular, everything else makes it far too easy for you, especially how the fact that you don't instantly die when you fall down to the pit this time around, which unlike Yoshi's Woolly World, and even the previous Yoshi games for sure, that it does manage to able to give you an instant death if you fell into the pit. But in this game in particular, everything else makes it far too easy in terms of the forms of the ultimate challenge throughout, because if you somehow fell into the bottomless pit below, then the actual egg fairy kind of wings will drag you back into the actual beginning portion of that segment, so... But you know, you get the idea for that solution right here, so even then there's not much else we can able to say about it. So I can see the next Poochie Pup just about into this little nest thing right here, so hopefully we would able to catch him, assuming if my egg tossing doesn't go that much well enough, and also those little goonies trying to able to ambush me. But luckily for me, I can able to actually just accept that, so... And if you can tell with the actual video's length, as you can see right now, we're going back onto the forms of the 30-minute mark, because compared to the previous 2 parts, that despite was actually pretty much shorter as it goes by, well, so the forms of this part in particular was now going back onto its, you know, the normal routine, but going through likely sometimes 30 or sometimes 35 minutes, if it's somewhat minimum. Especially because considering how the fact that if I'm actually missing something like these collectibles like souvenirs and also red coins and stuff like that, and also the smiley flowers outside of the forms of the actual objectives, if you can clearly tell. I don't know how many hours I actually did spend on this game. I might as well find it out for myself whenever I get into my actual data file. But either way though, let's not get ahead of ourselves for this point. And oh jeez, that was pretty close. Especially we really don't want to waste our time before the actual time itself has managed to go. I pretty much no idea how many minutes you have to beat on this in the actual time bonus as far as I'm aware. But we'll find out right about now in the actual results screen. So even then though, once again we got ourselves not only for the sake of the forms of those smiley flowers, which there were naturally 4 of them. So I think relatively speaking, it's still 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That's all we get the point for this point. Especially that whenever we get onto the altitude adjustment level, that we might actually come across into ourselves a different time length when it comes to getting those Poochie Pups basically. But then again though, we'll dive right in as soon as we're able to deal with other tasks first. So even then, the next thing we need to find is these dinosaurs. So even then, I think they're on the flip side if I recall. And once again, just like before, we'll go ahead and find the rest of the Poochie Pups basically. So even then though, let us get this thing to it. On the flip side on Poochie's Magma Run. So you get the idea for that solution here. So even then, let's just get this thing started. Thankfully though, you can't just simply just rush things up, especially noticeable how the fact that, well, imagine how the fact that if you try to do this on mellow mode, it will actually ruin the challenge for quite a lot of expert players such as myself. Well, it's fine for casual players, but to be more specifically, in my opinion, that it's nothing worth talking about when it comes to mellow mode itself, so... But I digress. And, I suppose another thing I wanted to say about this is the fact that, yes, during the forms of 2 days ago, that we did get ourselves the forms of a Impact Direct, and I'm gonna say I was pretty depressed by that, because, well, for one thing, it doesn't get that much hype compared to the forms of Nintendo's counterpart, and especially noticeable with a little bit in Sony's part, but unfortunately for the sake of time, I wasn't really into the forms of Impact Directs that much in comparison to, you know, the ones I'm always talking about since during the forms of a couple of days ago, the ones with Nintendo Directs and stuff like that. Like, why can't we just get the actual Nintendo Directs during the forms of, you know, during today or something like that? But no, this is due to the forms of the actual company itself, not just the forms of, not just down to us, but just to be more specifically with Nintendo stuff as well. Well, to be more specifically, it's all Nintendo's doing. No idea why I just fell down right there, but that's okay though, we at least got that. So even then, no need to aim for of course, the next set of few dinosaurs that we need to find during the forms of the flip side of this. I'm pretty sad to tell you for this point, guys, is the fact that this particular game's soundtrack was incredibly limited. For the most part though, because what I've double checked on the actual the sound test album, it actually only contains 20 songs compared to 60-ish kind of songs in Yoshi's Woolly World, which is pretty sad to tell you for this point, guys. Spoiler warning for those who have not even played this game yet. So even then, I'll explain more about it whenever we're able to show you guys some extra stuff of how this game offers us to. So even then, let's take care of these guys first before we grab the last Poochie Pup right here. So hopefully we got him, and we'll go ahead and leave the level straight off the bat, because not only just because we actually found ourselves all of these Poochie Pups, but also finding every single of those yellow dinosaurs. So there we go, we basically managed to accomplish that particular level, so with no sort of sweat whatsoever. So yeah, kudos to that. So, I suppose another thing I should probably talk about this also is the fact that, speaking of the forms of, other things worth mentioning, let's just get started with the forms of, the obvious thing, is the fact that, well, as far as for my DVD collection update recently, I pretty much no longer have Cars 2, because the reason why I've no longer decided to keep Cars 2 forever is because after rewatching that particular film for almost 10 years at this point, I do finally realize about the fact that I was actually pretty much, well, done with that film for now, because, well, usually relatively speaking, because, well, we'll explain more about it until then. Okay, if you couldn't tell right there, this is actually my third attempt on this particular level where it comes to Poochie Pups fighting, and it's also the golden UFOs to find as well. So this means we have to do two things at once in this for the sake of this particular run. So as you can see right there, that we still need to once again get a lot of emphasis on the plane mechanics and stuff like that, which, I swear to god, it's actually pretty much difficult for what I've held it for this point. But thankfully though, until whenever we get to the next few worlds and beyond, hopefully I might as well have ourselves an easier time with it. So either way though, well, at least until whenever we get to the next set of future worlds. So anyways, let's aim for this red balloon over there to get the first Poochie Pup. So yeah, about with the films of Cars 2, that I had that film ever since 2017. Specifically because of the retrospective of Cars 3 back in 2017 on this exactly the same year. I enjoyed the first one, and I enjoyed the third one especially because the actual main character, Lightning McQueen, is always the actual key factor. However though, I'm pretty much upsetting when it comes to the fact that Cars 2 is the weakest of the entire trilogy. And that's why I've managed to able to actually no longer have that film anymore, just because, well, after rewatching for that particular film several times, I just can't stand it anymore, because as a result, I totally understand because of how the fact that most critics seems to hate it, and also the audience also really despise that too, so at least I can utterly agree to that, because even then, I'm not gonna pick up Cars 2 ever again, because I'm just pretty disappointed by it, especially I've just almost got Snorefest most of the time, unlike the first one and the third one, which, kind of think about it, it has the exact same pattern as in with my Pirates of the Caribbean film selection so far, of what I've realized for my DVDs, shelves and stuff, but I digress. So enough about that. And I suppose another thing I should probably point things out before we're able to continue things on. We were originally trying to able to get ourselves Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition on the Nintendo Switch after all, but I have actually realized about something, is the fact that despite with the lack of Nintendo Direct announcements or anything like that, I'm actually going to be deciding to quit buying Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, because I have no idea why, because it just gets a little bit ridiculous to say, like, where's the actual release date? Where's the actual release date? But then no answers for about 6 whole months later, and then as far as you already know, it's because of how the fact that we haven't got a single general Nintendo Direct for about, you know, for about 6 months and a day right now, which even then though, ever since in 4th of September Direct, which this is getting dragged on. This is really dragging on at this point. And I know a lot of fans seem to get really upsetting for this, which I'm sure I surely did as well, but even then though, this is getting ridiculous. Like, for the love of God, we are in March right now, but none of those things happened, which, if it doesn't seem to happen, and specifically they're mainly focusing on, I'm pretty worried about the fact that it will mainly focusing on ND World instead of the general Nintendo Directs, which, oh my god, it's actually getting really nauseating at points, because even then, despite I'm not a big fan of those, you know, ND Directs, if I like to say for this point right about now, just because I just felt like it doesn't seem to interest me as much, well, apart from one game in particular, which is of course Cuphead, which did happen during about a year ago. But that's just how it is for me, and I think, seemingly to say, that's all I can really discuss for this point, especially how that the actual lack of information is getting dragged on right now, which I'm pretty sad to tell you for this point, guys. But hopefully things can get a little bit more relative in the future. So anyways, let's head back into this level. Because the only reason being for that is because, well, for one noticeable thing, I'm pretty much off by one of those smiley flowers, and also that I'm off by 3 red coins. So even then though, and also the health challenge as well, which I'll probably point it out too. So yeah, there's the last smiley flower. And before you're able to notice for this point, yes, I did manage to finish the level within the final smiley flower as far as I've now finally got it. Unfortunately, that cannot be same applies to those 3 red coins on this level because, well, I've accidentally ignored that before I'm able to show you guys the actual smiley flower to begin with. I could have done it normally to try to reverse it for that way, but unfortunately though, I was a little bit too hasty for myself, you see, so even then though. And also, in addition with that, we also decided able to go for the entire level all over again. Just in case, I just want to show you guys the much more better run in the forms of, well, to be more specifically, for the health challenge and stuff like that. And I suppose the actual final thing I just want to point out is the fact that in addition to having, like, we haven't got a single general Nintendo Direct for about 6 months now, but you could also count it as in 183 days as a matter of fact, which that's getting ridiculous at this point. So yeah, I think fundamentally there's the final 3 red coins just right there because I accidentally ignored that hidden cloud right there. So even then I just wanna point it out straight off the bat, but even then though, that might be some consumption for this throughout. So even then though, yeah, I'm pretty sadly to tell you for this point, guys, that I'm just not being not slightly in a good mood for this point, probably because of how the fact that, you know, there's some stuff I've already mentioned about this before, but at least even until then, that we've only got about 15 days left until the Sonic the Hedgehog panel for the SXSW panel will eventually happen. So at least expecting I was going to be hyping for that, especially how much of a die-hard Sonic fan such as myself. So even then, that makes it a little bit obvious for this point right there. So yeah, you probably get the idea for that solution right there. So even then, hopefully. By the time when SXSW panel was happening, then I'll love to able to discuss upon new things, but this is all down to the Super Mario Sunshine uploading schedules because, well, it's only on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at this point, whilst the forms of this game so far, it was actually Tuesdays and Thursdays now, because then again, as far as compared to last week, I was supposed to be able to actually upload some more schedules of Yoshi's Crafted World Let's Play, but unfortunately though, I had a really rough cold during the last few days, but thankfully though, my voice has still managed to go pretty much normal as it goes, but even then there's just a little bit of it just kind of shows how the fact that most of the time, that illness can sometimes becomes like a bad thing, especially that it makes it all even worse when you get the coronavirus. Oh god, just try to avoid that. Just try to avoid the actual coronavirus at all times. So anyway, now we're done with that completely 100%, despite I've already shown you guys the actual smiley flower that I was supposed to able to get on the first attempt, but even then we've now finally got it. So even then I guess we should probably end things off at this point right there. So join me next time on Let's Play Yoshi's Crafted World. It's the fact that we might able to actually still continue things on with the souvenir huntings in Sky High Heights. And after that, I'm presuming we might actually move on to the next new world. It may not be the world on the top, but then again, we'll see what happens until next Tuesday. So even then, I'll see you guys then. Later, fellas.